want to talk about empathy. Sympathy is basically, you know, saying, yep, that happened to me and I get it. And you're making the person's problem or what they're trying to talk to you about yours. And you're trying to say, yeah, I've been there too. And we all do it because we want to feel connected to the person. Yeah. And we want to feel like we're helping them. But by changing their issue, we're not actually understanding the person in front of us. We're just sharing our own needs. So we're not necessarily giving them anything, you know, it's just becomes this conversation of like, yeah, me too. Instead of saying, well, so that would be sympathy. Empathy is really sitting, and I'm going to use a keyword and I'm going to say it over and over again, and listening to the person. So if you gave me a story of yours that was, you know, on your mind, bothering you, it's my job to be really connected to you and just listen to you. And we can do an example if you want. Yeah. But it really comes down to me, there's in a way a 3-step sort of process. And it comes down to me first listening to you. Second, repeating back what I heard. So I'm going to repeat back to you the gist of what I heard in your particular story, for example. And you confirm, yep, and that's, you know, the way it is, or no, that's not the way it is. And then I'd go to find, you know, a few.
Welcome to another episode coming at you from ChooseYourRelationships.com, author of Love Can't Wait, which can be found on Amazon.com. So today I have another special guest. She's worked in the professional sporting world, optimizing professional athletes through recovery. She's helped thousands of people through her clinical work with Epigenetics. Her desire is for everyone to understand the body they live in so they can live purposefully, pain-free, energetic, as well as connecting with the people around them. She uses her experience to grow healthy communities across the globe through epigenetics, replacing deeply embedded patterns in the body that no longer serve as a person on their life journey. She has created educational pathways for people to understand how they have been conditioned and why these habits may not align with their living purposefully. My special guest today is Dr. Ann Shivas. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so thanks for taking the time to do this. So where are you from?
Originally Canada, living over in New Zealand at the moment. And in Canada, I was more so into clinical work. And since being in New Zealand, it's been more so online, I guess, now, just with the state of the world. So yeah, that's where I am at the moment. Been in the US a few times though. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So how did you get in this line of work? Did you go to school for this, or did you study for this, or was this a long-term goal?
Well, yeah, we were just chatting before, right? And I had my clinic, and it was to manage people's pain. And so it was all about people were coming to the clinic to say, how do I live with less pain or discomfort in my body? And I ended up going down a path of how people are almost wired to live in a way. And there's a buzzword out now that's called epigenetics. And it's basically how you express yourself in each environment you put yourselves in. And today we're talking about relationships. And naturally, we will express ourselves based on the relationships we saw when we grow up, because that's all we know. And that's how we've been wired. And I think that's a good place to start. So I got into really understanding people around their relationships because that was a big complaint, so to speak, when people would come in of why they were really stressed was, you know, my relationship's not working out, or I don't know what to do, and I'm feeling stuck, and so-and-so is not listening to me. And, you know, we've said it all and we've heard it all, right? So it's really around how can we open up those pathways of how we've been, in a way, conditioned to live, or what we've seen as a young child, and knowing that maybe that's not the best way, and we will repeat it unless we become more aware of how we can connect with one another.
Okay, so what what is epigenetics? What's the definition? Because I never really hear a lot of people say.
Yeah, well, so you have your blueprint of who you are.
Mhm.
And so, it creates lots of things in us. It creates our personality, how we act, how we see the world, how we express ourselves on a personality level. It creates what foods benefit our body. And so we're doing all these things in a day: exercise, socializing, and even, sleep, and just lifestyle choices. And then our DNA expresses itself in those environments. So for example, if we stay up all night and we don't get sun during the day, we might become a little bit depressed because we're never seeing the sun, and we do need vitamin D, right?
Yeah.
And so over time, we might express something around an inflammatory response that would tell us you probably need to change what you're doing, and maybe not stay up all night and get outside during the day, for example. So yeah, that's what gene expression is all about, is sitting in a space and understanding how your body is expressing itself in certain environments.
Yeah, I heard about epigenetics like man, probably 10 years ago.
Have you
And
heard of Bruce Lipton? Bruce Lipton has some good
yeah,
stuff out there.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
yeah. But at the time, it was kind of like a new thing. It seemed like even him, it seemed like he wasn't really sure. He was like testing and learning along the way. And
Mm.
then, he said something that I heard in like older books. Basically what he said, your environment, you know, is pretty much makes or break you. Pretty much you become your environment. And then he went on to talk about DNA and a whole lot of stuff, you know.
Well, we
But
can make it easy, right? Like, that's maybe he's quite sciencey, which I really enjoy. But for the average listener, we can just talk about the fact that your environment does shape you, no matter what. So if you're constantly in a stressful environment, you're going to end up with an inflammatory response, and getting either burnt out, or completely overwhelmed or reactive, or not feeling like yourself. And the whole point is to really thrive as you and be understood for who you are. And I think humans, in a way, we haven't been taught how to really understand one another well, based on who that person is, and why they're there. And we could call that love. Now, I would love to talk about that definition of what love looks like, and how we're maybe taught to see love on the planet, and maybe what we attach to that based on our childhood stories that have shaped us, which would be our epigenetic environment as well.
yeah, and I always say, in some cultures, as far as love go, they don't really. There's no definition of what love really is in some cultures. They don't, and it's then in some cultures, love is, hey, I take care of you, I take care of the family. It's based on the role, and then over
Mm.
here in the West, it's kind of like it's based on how I feel.
Hmm. Well, what do you talk about around love, like, um, in relationships exactly? What would your viewers think it would look like?
I focus on the respect is first, and then I say just focus on the role of man and woman, and then we can love is a process. We can get to that later. That's why I always say
Mm.
because, and the reason why I say that, because if the relationship is built upon how I feel, when the feelings go away, then people stop doing what they're doing, their roles. You know what I mean? That's what I
Yeah,
mean.
I definitely do. And I guess, I look at it in a way as we grow up, we watch all these films and movies and stuff, and we think this fairy tale story kind of exists, right?
Yeah.
But the reality of things is it doesn't.
No.
It doesn't exist at all. And uh, there's not going to be someone to come in and just save you. Just understand that, you know, they're going to live for you in a way. So in my opinion, it comes down to really knowing yourself and living in a place of non-judgment. That's what love is. And um, when you can actually sit back and not judge somebody for the way they are and understand that there's a deeper pattern behind why they're doing what they're doing, then we can actually, that to me is showing them love and connection of understanding their need. So to take it one step further, there'll be an interaction in a relationship, let's say. So somebody's angry and the other person's sad. And it's up to those two people to sit back and understand, okay, I'm sad because I'm feeling, find the feeling behind it. Or, I attacked you because I'm feeling scared or angry or, hostile. And then understand that that's that person's stuff. And then we need to look for the need behind it. So the need behind it could be, safety. Maybe they didn't grow up in a safe place. Maybe they don't even know what it's like to feel safe. And so if we truly love that person in front of us, we can show up and say, okay, I can help you with your safety or consideration. What does that look like to you? And start to get the story behind it of maybe why they were living the way they were. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think a lot of people struggle in that area. They struggle with trying to I guess put themselves in the other person's shoes or try to understand where this person is coming from and try to understand where it stems from. A lot of people struggle because even the people that I know, I found that if I can tell somebody something all day, right? Something that I've been through, something I experienced. But if they haven't had the experience, a lot of people will say, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal, man. It's just a job." I was like, "No, it's not a job." Like me being in the Navy, right? In the military. People, if I tell somebody an experience I had in the military, they'll say, "Oh man, it was just a job." I said, "No, it's not. It wasn't just a job. If it was just a job, I could just leave and never come back." So I found that a lot of people struggle with that. They haven't, I guess, experienced it or been in it. They have a very hard time trying to just kind of put themselves in that person's shoes and understand where that person is coming from and understand why the way they think and where it stems from.
Right. Yeah. And I think also, so there's two ways of looking at a relationship. There's one with sympathy and one with empathy. And I want to talk about empathy. Sympathy is basically, saying, yep, that happened to me and I get it. And you're making the person's problem or what they're trying to talk to you about yours. And you're trying to say, yeah, I've been there too. And we all do it because we want to feel connected to the person. And we want to feel like we're helping them. But by changing their issue, we're not actually understanding the person in front of us. We're just sharing our own needs. So we're not necessarily giving them anything, it's just becomes this conversation of like, yeah, me too. Instead of saying, well, so that would be sympathy. Empathy is really sitting, and I'm going to use a keyword and I'm going to say it over and over again, and listening to the person. So if you gave me a story of yours that was, on your mind, bothering you, it's my job to be really connected to you and just listen to you. And we can do an example if you want. But it really comes down to me. There's, in a way, a 3-step sort of process. And it comes down to me first listening to you. Second, repeating back what I heard. So I'm going to repeat back to you the gist of what I heard in your particular story, for example. And you confirm, yep, and that's, the way it is, or no, that's not the way it is. And then I'd go to find, a feeling behind it. And the feeling that I'm choosing for you might not be the right one. You might say, oh no, actually I'm feeling like this, and so on. And then behind that is a need. So isn't this funny? Because we've never been taught how to communicate. and I think if you want, we could just chat with your viewers about just a really in a way, simple process. And even if someone starts with the step one, just starting by listening and repeating back what they heard, already that person will feel heard. They will. So, we could do an example if you want, not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
And so it goes like this, and I think it gives people the tangible of taking this home to their family. You can even do it with kids. Kids just want to be heard and feel safe. So what we can do is say this. I'm going to ask you for like a story of some sort, a story that's on your mind that may be bothering you, or maybe alive in you, and something that you feel is important to you. So oftentimes we go to our close friends for this, don't we? Just to be heard, and say, oh, I need to have a chat about whatever it is. So is there something that's on your mind? It can also be something really good too. It doesn't have to be.
No,
Oh, it's
not
bad,
at the moment.
right?
But I'll tell you what. I'll use my military experience. Something that happened when I first got out. Okay, when I first got out, it was tough being in the Navy for me personally, right? So I went to my friends and I said, hey, those 4 years was really tough, man. I felt like there was so many restrictions, and I'm so happy to be out. And their response was, hey, it was just a regular job, man. No big deal.
Okay.
So, of course, I didn't like that response.
Okay. And what didn't you like about it?
I felt like they didn't understand where I was coming from. Like a disconnect.
A disconnection. Yeah. Okay. And did you try with other people or?
Yeah. And after about, I don't know, maybe the fifth or sixth person, I just said, forget it.
Yeah. And then we tend to close up, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing the story right of what you told me, it's, you got out of the Navy after 4 years and you went to about 6 or 7 friends and just wanted to share your experiences of what you've really been through and what you were feeling in there, and potentially that it didn't really align with who you are as a person. And there's obviously experiences in there that didn't feel aligned with you.
Yeah.
And in a way you felt maybe, a bit misunderstood, or neglected from your friends coming out on the other side and felt not heard.
Yep.
Is that pretty much the story?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So, I would ask, and so that's basically the first step if we take a pause. And I would ask you now, like, do you feel like I actually listened and heard your story?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I repeated it back to you. And then I would say, is there anything else you want to add?
No, that's about it.
That's about it. Yeah. And sometimes other things come up for people, so they do want to add. And so, I tried to just understand where you're at. And the next step then would be for me to say, did that story make you feel, I guess, a bit disappointed?
When you spoke about it?
Or when you're speaking about it with your friends. So you're, chatting with your friends and
I felt kind of disappointed and kind of surprised. They would respond the way they did.
Were you a bit sad as well?
No, I wouldn't say sad, but just disappointed and, surprised at the time, I would say. Not sad.
Okay. Perhaps lonely?
Yeah. Not at that, but I took maybe a couple months later. Yeah. I felt a little lonely.
And maybe a bit, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, because, I felt like I was in two different worlds.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
which
Was
is,
there any kind of disappointment as well?
yeah, yeah. I mean, just because we're friends, right? And you know, I mean, I would think that if we're friends, we're supposed to understand each other to a certain extent. I'm not saying everything, but to
Mhm.
a certain extent. But
Mhm.
that's what the that's what a lot of that came from.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I hear you. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So the step 2 is I was just looking for feelings of yours inside of you that you potentially could be feeling at that time. And I'm not attaching to your feelings, right?
Yeah,
I'm just asking you what you were feeling. And my job is to help you understand your own feelings about this. You know,
gotcha.
were you feeling disappointed? Were you feeling um, you know, a bit frustrated, a bit, you know, maybe isolated or lonely? I use the word lonely, but it could be isolated.
Okay.
You know, like you can choose loads of words. I mean, I take people through a course on this of understanding all the feelings that are out there that people use. Um, and then the next part is, um, you know, I'm looking for the need behind the emotion. Okay. So I would ask you, you know, are you needing some trusted connection in this moment? So say we're going through the conversation still and we go back into it. And so put yourself back in there. So, you know, Lopez, are you feeling like you needed some trusted connection? And you can answer.
No, no,
No? Are you feeling like you
no.
need to be heard?
Yeah, at the time, yeah,
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 in that story. Okay, so now you know one of your needs, right? To be heard. And I would say is another need of yours, or do you really value respect in relationships?
yeah,
Mutual respect. Yeah.
yeah.
So, you know, we have, you know, being heard, mutual respect, and what about trust? Do you value trust in relationships?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, trust, respect, um, and also perhaps some reliability.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah. Here we just came up with 4 needs after me listen. Yeah, and how does that make you feel actually understanding this now? So in relationships, you're looking for trust, respect, reliability, and, you know, some connection, right? Um, maybe
yeah.
some belonging of some sort. And so when it starts to come into your mind now, you're like, "Oh, you can look at your relationships and decide if that's a relationship that you want to keep or not.
Oh
And
yeah,
and that and now you can go start searching for relationships about, you know, trust and respect and being heard and you know, some belonging of some sort, some community connection.
yeah.
And now that that's conscious in your mind, you're probably sitting there thinking, gosh, you know, like when you told me that story now, do you feel like I actually listened and heard you?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Do you feel more calm in your body?
yeah. I understood.
Yeah. Thanks for going through this, by the way. Not everybody jumps on the table for this one, but you did it. And I really appreciate that. And so my job in a relationship, you know, with you as a friend is to just listen to you, is to listen and then to say, okay, you know, what does Lopez really want for himself? I'm not trying to tell you what you need. That's not my job. I'm not trying to change you. I just want to get you to a point where you understand what you need. Does that
Gotcha.
make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah. And so, how often in relationships do we tell their people what they need because we think we know best for them? We don't.
yeah, yeah. That's true. A lot of
You
people.
know, I've never been in the Navy. I don't even know what it's like. I didn't do the training. I I don't understand it, to be quite honest I mean, I understand components of it, but I
Yeah,
didn't go through it.
yeah,
And And so for you to tell me about the Navy and maybe things that happened to you in the Navy, all that I can do is listen to the feelings behind it and then figuring out what you need. And so in the Navy, perhaps, you know, there was some frustration and maybe, you know, just feeling overwhelmed and these kind of things. And then, you know, after that, I would go in and ask you, not even having experienced it myself, go in and ask you if, you know, maybe, you know, do you need some acknowledgement? Like in the Navy, were you missing acknowledgement? And you can say yes or no. I actually don't know. I'm just guessing at the moment.
No.
You weren't missing acknowledgement. Were you missing some kind of inclusion or like need to matter?
No. No.
No, you felt good? Okay.
Yeah.
Were you missing your own autonomy or calmness?
I would say no. No.
Okay. Did you enjoy it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, the problems came
Yeah, you did
about.
enjoy it. Okay.
Yeah,
So you know, maybe
the problems came about
sorry, go
when I
ahead.
got out. When I got out the Navy, that's when
Mm,
the problems came about.
okay. Oh, so yeah, I guess your needs were met then when you were in the Navy, and we can talk about
Yeah.
how they were met. It doesn't always have to be negative. You know, maybe you were feeling quite empowered and confident
Yep.
um and just, you know, amazed to even be there. You know, that could be something. And
Oh yeah.
then I guess we're understanding now that the disconnection came
It
when
was,
you came out. And you know, I'm just learning about you too, which is cool. And that's potentially where you needed that community support and to
yeah.
be heard and so on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think when I went in the Navy, it was like a midlife crisis.
Okay.
Because I didn't really know what I signed up for.
Mm,
I thought I did, but no, I did. It's like a different world, you know.
yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you know, at the time I'm 20 years old at the time.
Right.
So I don't really know. Well, number one, when I left home, I went to Chicago, and
Mhm.
that's like a 2-hour flight from where I'm from. I'm from South Carolina, and that's the furthest I've ever been away from home. And I've never been anywhere without my parents. That's my first time too without my parents. And
Mm,
you know, the training and everything was about like 5 months. And I'm around new people, which I didn't have a problem with being around new people. That was okay. But I've never been around so many people all in one
mm,
space. That was a new thing for me. That I kind of struggled with that in the beginning, but as time went
mhm.
on, you know, I got better and I adapted like most of us do, you know. And I had a new sense of kind of like a new family away from home, you know.
Yes.
And then, but the bad news is, once that program was over after 5 months, I had to leave, and then
Mm,
I went home for 2 weeks, and then then when I went home after the 2 weeks was up, I went straight to Japan for 3.5 years.
wow. Hmm.
That was a culture shock
Mm, hmm. Hmm.
because you know I didn't know anything about Japan. I didn't even know where Japan was located. Now I've heard people talk about Japan, but I didn't know anything about it. Didn't know what to expect, and they don't tell you anything. They give you your orders, your paperwork, your flight, but they don't tell you anything. They say, "Hey, when you get to the airport, a guy is going to be holding up a number. That's the guy that's going to show you around, and
Mm,
he's going to take you to the base, and that's it. That's the only instructions you get. You don't get you. They don't tell you anything about the culture. They don't say anything about the language, and so it was like a culture shock for me. You know.
mm, mm. So maybe there was some disconnection at that point of
Yeah.
the fear of the unknown in a way, right?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't. wasn't no fear, more of I would say no fear. I was kind of like kind of curious, and at the same time kind of I just don't know what to expect.
Mm.
And you know,
Yeah. Maybe, yeah, I guess a bit unsettling might be,
yeah, there you
right?
go.
Yeah, if it's new for you. And so I was
Yeah.
trying to look, yeah, for the need that's not being met. So there's that unsettling part. Um, interesting. And so none of your friends would really understand all of this at the end of the day.
Oh no.
No,
No,
right.
not at
Yeah,
all.
I understand. So, did you feel um we're going through your stuff now, which I think is great because it gives people a really good example of, everyday things.
Yeah.
Yours isn't so everyday, but relocating and moving can be highly stressful for people,
Oh yeah.
especially if they don't really know what's on the other side. Um, I think what divorce is the number one thing that stresses people out, and number two is actually moving location. So you're right up there
Yeah.
with the stress scale. And it's quite interesting because if we just learned to help people with their needs and their emotions around things, we would really start to understand the actual human rather than just putting them through something without understanding them at all. So I hope people can use in a way those techniques to just really listen to people. The first thing is to just listen and then repeat back the story. And I could have gone through another one with you going through Japan and finding the need behind it, because it gives you space to share, rather than me sitting there and being like, oh, I've been to Japan too, and blah 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 blah, and I did this, and didn't you do that? Like, this is what we say, right? And
Yeah.
but that's not the point of connecting on a really loving level. You space to share without judging, and then helping you find the need behind it. And the need can be more of like I don't want to say negative, but it can be a, a, yeah, I guess a more negative need, or it can be more of it can be something that's quite exhilarating, like confident and affectionate, and those needs are being met in you, and you still want to talk about them and share them, and that's okay too. So it's just the listening component that we really need to get nailed down for people, so that they feel connected on a deeper level with all their relationships, friendships, intimate relationships, everything, even patient client relationships, coaching relationships. Like, this is the missing link in a way.
How do you help people make this a normal way of communicating?
Oh, actually, it's a really good question. I did struggle with that for a while. I shouldn't say I did struggle with it. I started to put it into my clinical practice.
Okay.
So clients that were coming in, I, in a way, would sit with them. I changed my whole model around. I used to be kind of like the 20-minute type person, and then I changed all my my meetups with my clients to an hour. And within that hour, I gave them 20 minutes to just share what was happening in their lives, just like I did with you, and what was top of mind and on your mind. And then I would use that method with them. And what I noticed with them is they would just start to calm down a little bit, which was, I was like, okay, now we're getting somewhere, and now I can actually understand potentially in your body and what's happening, and I'm hearing you. And then they'd start to realize stuff that they're doing in their lives, and it becomes a bit more conscious of like, oh, I'm actually creating this stuff for myself, and so on. And so I started it that way. And then I went on the last year, and I built an app. Actually, it's an educational app that people can come on board and go on their own journey and learn the techniques, and then start to use them with people. And then we have a group that we meet up every so often online on Zoom, and we practice. We practice this type of communication, because it doesn't come naturally, does it? Sometimes, like,
No.
we get all caught up in our own stuff, and then we want to solve their problem. And it's not about solving their problem. It's just about listening. And so, yeah, I do a monthly meetup online too. And people go through the techniques, and then we get on and practice them. And they practice with people they don't even know, which is cool. So you're learning about the person, and it's not about solving their problem. It's just about practicing listening. So, I would say the how-to is really helping people understand that they need to practice listening again. We're not really taught that well in this day and age.
So the app is basically about everything that you teach, basically.
Yeah, I mean, in relationships, there's loads more on the app, obviously, into, you know, body and wellness and understanding our consciousness and things like that. But the baseline about listening with empathy is huge. And in order to just create a human connection with somebody, it always starts with listening. So it's the step one. Always.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the one last question? What's
Yeah, sure.
what's the difference between epigenetics and biohacking? What's the difference?
You know, they kind of have a lot of crossover, don't they? Biohacking is really about knowing yourself at a deeper level and understanding your body to optimize it, right? And epigenetics is very similar. It's really, again, about understanding your body in certain environments to optimize it. I would say epigenetics is a little bit more particular, especially with the model I tend to work with, around understanding yourself, especially on a neurological level, so how the mind works and so on. And biohacking is usually about the biology, right? Of like what we're ingesting or what we're doing and how it's changing our biological outputs, our body, and how we feel. But they do have quite a bit of crossover. Actually, that's a really good question, thinking about that. So they're similar and different in many ways. But biohacking, I think, is, yeah, finding something that works for you, whether it works for you for a short duration time or long duration, great. Epigenetics is really understanding what your body needs, because that's the body you're born into and you learn how to work with it. So maybe kind of opposite ends, but they're meeting at the same place.
Gotcha. So if people wanted to follow you and work with you and get the app and all that good stuff, where would they go to?
There's my website, and they can just sign up under the subscription, download the app, and we take people on their journey. I have a beautiful community actually in there, where we're having these kind of conversations about how to live better in your body and so on. And basically, you know, it's the price of a gym membership. And that's where we wanted to keep it, because, you know, I want all walks of life to come to this, because I believe that building stronger communities is about getting everybody involved. And they can get some coaching from me monthly. And there's also some amazing coaches that I work with that they can, you know, get help from too, on a one-on-one sense if they really want to. But getting the basics down is always the beginning, and just being curious about yourself, I think, is always really fun too. So yeah, that's where it's all at.
Great. So there you have it. All links will be found in the show notes. Like, share this episode. Tell me what you think below. Until next time, we're out. Peace.